Hey everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at a bike from Binary Bikes. They're based in Arizona, and that influences a lot of the thinking they do with the design of their bikes and everything like that. The one we've got today, they call their Expedition bike. So let's take a look at it. It's the Kinetik. So Binary, as I said, they are based down in Arizona. They sell and design titanium frames. Earlier this year, I reviewed the Gordita, which is their fat bike, and it's more of a trail-oriented fat bike than anything. Rode that, really beautiful bike, enjoyed the ride on that. They've also got some other ones. They've worked with Steve from Hardtail Party. He has the Maniac. This Kinetik right here is kind of their middle ground. They call it their Expedition bike, something you could take out for 3 months at a time and just tackle whatever you wanted. It's a really versatile frame, super middle ground on a lot of the geometry, but with some more touring features. Now, Binary sent this to me as just a frame, and I kind of pieced it together. They were kind enough to include the crank and chainring right there, but otherwise, these are parts that I've stolen from other things. Before I jump into the geometry, let's hit some of the highlights of the bike real quick. As you're going to notice, I think this is the first thing I noticed when I pulled it out, is how many mounts there are, and they're just everywhere. Normally, this is normal to have 2 right there, but oh look, you've got 2 more mounts right there. And then what about back here? Cage mounts there and on that side. Moving down to here, you've got a 3-pack mount there, cage mount right there. George over at Binary, he calls these the drop tank mounts right there. So you can throw some extra cages there or just mount whatever you want, really. It's also got rack mount right there and back here. These right here, dropouts, I want to mention, this is a pre-production frame, and so these have been changed to accept Paragon mounts, and this is kind of a proprietary thing, but similar in function and everything. So this bike, like I said, is designed more for expeditions, but it's kind of built more to be a do-it-all bike. The geometry is an interesting mix. So fitting into this long-term riding type of mentality and going for some more comfort, it's got a really tall stack. On the 20-inch, it's got a 648 stack, but the reach is only 455. So if you're expecting a super long reach, it doesn't have that. And again, the reasoning for that is comfort. You're not going to want to be stretched out all day. That would not be very comfortable. Bike's designed around a 120 mil fork, so not super tall, but also not the shortest. I'm running a Ren on here. I really love this fork. It's 110 travel, but it has the axle, the crown of a 120. And the measurement here for the head tube at 67 degrees, that's based on a 120 mil fork at sag. So it's going to be a little bit slacker as you're looking at it right here. As you know, if you've seen any of my videos before, I love a 67 degree head tube angle. I think it's a great all-rounder. It's slack enough to be fairly confident on descents and when things get steep, but it's not so slack that it's still pretty enjoyable on blues, greens, dirt roads, whatever. C-tube angle is 74.5 degrees, which is a little bit steeper. If I was to throw a shorter fork on there, that would be my only concern, is I would feel really far forward, which I don't know that I would love. But you also have a really high stack to kind of counteract some of that being super far forward. It keeps you a little more upright. These chainstays, if you think they look fairly long, that's because they are fairly long. In the shortest position right here, you've got a 455 chainstay, which is on the longer side, but it's still fairly maneuverable and everything. It's not going to be a bike that you're going to be manualing and wheeling everywhere, but then you're able to extend it out if you want more stability all the way out to 470, which is a nice and long chainstay, would be very stable, really nice if you're loaded up and want that. Speaking of coming down to the bottom bracket, it's 60 mils of drop. That's not a crazy amount, but it is a little more than you would normally see. You'd probably more see in like the mid 50s. That adds to the stability, as well as it puts you in a little bit more of an upright position because your feet are going to be lower. One more thing to mention, these are Binary's Falcon bars. I rode these before on the Gordita. They're kind of like a cross between a Jones and a Moloko. A couple of quick things before I go out and ride this. It is boost spacing, and it can clear a 29x3. That's part of the reason for the longer chainstays as well. It's, again, for some stability, and this isn't supposed to be a super shreddy, rowdy bike. So I do have 29x3s on there right now. The back is a 45i rim. The front is a 25i rim, and this I don't think I'm gonna love. I think it's there's not a whole lot of support for the sidewells, and I have to run a higher pressure, but we're gonna make it work. And yeah, let's go out and ride. Super upright riding position. The reach, as I've said, is shorter than most modern hardtails these days. Feels like a big, long bike. Super stable and really planted. I'm not even really, doing much yet, but it just has that feeling to it. I feel extremely in the bike thanks to that stack and the low bottom bracket. I can see how that's intentional though, because it feels like something I could ride all day long, over and over, because it's just comfortable. I think I could probably go with a shorter stem. This is a 60 mil. At least on this one, I'd like a 40, 45, at least with these bars. Normally when I get to this first little descent here, the brakes aren't bedded in, anything like that. But these are my brakes and everything, and they are not suffering from that. So should be good to go here. Woo. Oh, except for my hose, I didn't route it properly and it's rubbing on the spokes. One other thing I want to mention on the sizing is if you look at the chart, there's like 8 sizes, something like that, which isn't typical. Typically, you get small through extra large, maybe an extra small. The reason they do that is it's really to cover more people and different sizes so that you can get it optimal for you. So you won't be getting a custom frame or a custom size, but it's a lot more like semi-custom, because there's not as much a difference between all those different sizes. I might play with the stack a little, I have this fork has a really long steerer tube. I left it that way on purpose. That way I can adjust it as needed across all the different bikes I run it on. But I might play with it, maybe even go a little lower. Pretty high right now. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think I'd actually like it if I was out on a really long ride, or multi-day, multi-week, multi-month. But if I was just at my local trails, I don't know, I might want it a little lower. I find this with a lot of more adventure oriented bikes is they're not the most thrilling to ride, I guess you would say. They're just really stable, not very playful. Not that they're really capable though. That's what's interesting, is a lot of times you'd associate capability with like fun, but that's not what it is. But I mean, woo, those Dakar rally big giant trucks, I don't think those are like the most fun to drive. They just kind of mow over everything, but they're still incredibly capable, and I think that's maybe a good comparison. It's not that you can't make them playful, it's just different riding. Woo. Titanium bar and frame is really helping with some of the trail chatter, and then It's also got the plus tires and it's a suspension fork, and so it's a very smooth ride. Not a lot of vibration felt in my hands. This isn't a super rough trail, but there's a lot of you know, four-wheelers and dirt bikes and all that coming up here, so you get kind of braking bumps and their tread pattern through here. All right, so let's get to the most technical portion of our test loop here. I'm not doing any like black diamonds or anything on the test loop because I take every single bike on the loop, and some are not meant for that. The more I ride longer chainstays though, the more I think we're making a mistake going super short. At least for general trail riding. Because even though this is a hardtail, it's just unfazed by, I don't know, bumps and steep stuff and everything. It just kind of goes right through it. It's a little long. I'm used to that though from my LWB. You have to adjust your riding a little. All right, so there we go. That was the first ride. Overall, it's about what I expected. You know, looking at the geometry and everything like that, very comfortable ride. I love that it fits the 29 plus, and that the ride characteristics that gives it. This back end feels, or just the bike in general, feels longer overall than I would have expected. That's not a bad thing necessarily. Makes it really stable. And you know what? It could be because of that little bit of extra bottom bracket drop, or I don't know. There could be a few reasons. I need to go back and take a look at the geometry chart, as well as, you know, as I ride it more, I'm gonna be able to understand it a little bit better. That's the reason I go for a first ride and then I ride it for, you know, a month or so. I also need to take advantage of these 8 million mounts. Maybe I'll just throw any bottle cage I can find on and see how much water I could potentially store. Yeah. So again, I want to say thanks to Binary for sending this out. As usual, it's a beautiful frame. Their designs are just unique. There's usually some sort of sweeping to it, plus, you know, just unique, very cool design overall. It's not boring to look at, and so far it seems like it's got the ride to it to back it up. If you want to learn more about this bike, I've put links down in the description, and then go check out the review of their Gordita, the fat bike, because that is also a very beautiful bike, and I had a good time on that bike. So yeah, go check that out, and subscribe, the usual stuff that I would say at the end of this. But thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.